nexus of conspiracy theory and the paranormal meet. And now, we join the show already in progress with your hosts, Adam and Serfiel.
All right, guys. All right, we're going to get started. All right. We're back on Conspirinormal. And, guys, we really have a treat for you tonight. We have another roundtable. And how this one came about was I really wanted to get Greg Bishop to be on for the roundtable that we did on Woke in the 90s. He wasn't able to do it. And I figured, well, why don't we just do another roundtable? And I don't know where this one is going to take us, but we do have some questions from the Woke in the 90s. So let's go around and introduce. We've got Greg Bishop.
Hello.
Hey, Greg. And Tim Binnall.
Yo, what's going on, guys?
Oh, man. Just podcasting, bro. And
cast life.
Casting. It's that cast life.
Podcasting, bro.
And Robert Guffey is here as well.
Greetings from Long Beach, California.
Absolutely, man. That was quite a. I remember when we hung out last year, Robert. That was like I only recorded like an hour of a 4-hour conversation.
Yes, it was like a 4-hour lunch, and you recorded an hour of it. You should have just kept it. You should have just kept it rolling.
Yeah, it would have been pretty epic. There was a lot of walking around and such as well. But
that's true. The walking tour.
So we did something interesting this last weekend over August 17th and it was over August 17th and 18th. We were only there for one day. We went to the Alien Expo in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is only about 2.5 hours from us. And we met some interesting people. And I want to get you guys' thoughts on, one person in particular. So, should we go right into that, or is there anything you want to?
Yeah, I mean, let's just talk about the expo real quick.
Expo itself? Okay.
Some of the highlights and the stuff that we really enjoyed.
Yeah, so we went to this thing in Knoxville, and we watched Kathleen Marden speak, was the first one.
Yeah.
And a lady named Angelia Shear, who actually is the local MUFON,
the Tennessee
representative here in Tennessee. She actually lives around in the Nashville area. And we saw Ray Hernandez.
Yeah, which that was really the highlight of the speeches.
Yes, it was.
Really, really good.
It was. And it was kind of a shame.
Yeah.
With how that was handled, because for some reason they kept going over on presentations, and Ray Hernandez only got about 40 minutes. And the guy that came after him was this guy named Ken Stone, who was one of these secret space program, they went down the time tunnel to Mars guys.
Yeah.
Which he couldn't hear anybody. He had to constantly ask people to speak up. And the Ray Hernandez stuff was like really fascinating. It was all about the free study that he had done, I guess him and Rosemary Ellen Guiley, that they did, I think, like a couple of years ago. And they compared alien abduction experience to near-death experience. And Greg, I know you know Ray Hernandez, but I thought it was kind of a real shame that they did not give him enough time. And it was probably the most interesting presentation there,
and the one that everyone really needed to hear.
Right, exactly. So, like, if we do another conference at some time, I would definitely give him a full hour.
Yeah, it was a great presentation.
But he skipped over a lot of stuff. So
yeah, you can't have Ray skip over stuff because his stuff is fairly comprehensive. His book, that book they put together with all the documents in it, is just a horse choker.
The Beyond UFOs, yeah.
And it's got, I think, there's some good stuff in there. Good comparisons between advances in physics and parapsychology and how that relates to the UFO thing. And of course, everybody that's listening, you guys, all probably pretty certain there's connections. I'm pretty sure there are, because the connection is the human mind, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you're dealing with the human mind, you got to deal with these other areas. And Ray is doing that. He's trying to make people aware of these connections in kind of a populist way instead of an academic way. Although he has academics, working with him and helping him. But yeah, that it'd be nice to see one of those books like boiled down into like a couple hundred pages.
Yeah,
sure.
Because you kind of have to jump around in that book.
Yeah, it just, like I said before, it was just a shame that he got so less time than the Martian super soldier guy, the secret space program astronaut.
Yeah, did you talk about it?
Was it just because he was polite? Was it because he was like he actually ended on time if everybody else went over? Was he like the only one who was like, oh, hey, I'm actually supposed to be on until 5, so I'm going to stop now?
No, they were rushing him because they're trying to get back on schedule, and then I guess they just gave up on that a couple later and just let this other guy.
Yeah, and there was supposed to be another speaker speaking till 7:15, and like that guy didn't even get to speak.
Jeez. I hope he got paid.
Yeah, I'm assuming that he got to speak the next day, but we weren't there the next day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess, you should have just talked to the guy afterwards anyway if you thought he had a great presentation, have him on your show or whatever.
Yeah,
we definitely want to.
Yeah, we were trying, but he had a lot of people, and we thought we'd still had time. Maybe he'd go back to his booth, but everybody was packing up.
Just like to him.
Yeah.
Did you get a card or something? If you didn't, I've got one, and I can give you the info off that.
Cool. Yeah,
excellent.
That's why. Yeah, I want to try to get in touch with him and get him on the show because
Probably the same that's on his web presence. So
he's also in Pasuka's book too, and that's what I was pointing out to Seraphiel when we were there.
Yeah.
But that was probably the most important talk that I felt people needed to hear. But the unfortunate thing was I felt like this whole thing was much more geared to kind of like much more geared to the ETH hypothesis and much more geared towards like kind of the ancient aliens kind of stuff as well.
Like the mainstream.
The mainstream stuff. Yeah.
This was actually my first UFO conference, and I looked at Adam and I was like, dude, this feels like church.
That's what they're like.
You can just feel the belief,
Right.
Yeah. No, that's definitely what they're like. That's 99.9% of them. And then there's, and then if you're lucky, you get little bits and pieces in there of people that aren't really doing that. I know that Alejandro Rojas at the UFO Congress, he tried. He gets those people in there, like the secret space program jump room BS stuff in there. But he'll also sneak in a whole bunch of other people that actually kind of irritate some of the audience, which is, no matter what you think of Alejandro, I think that's good. He had Robbie Graham there a couple of years ago, and people didn't like his talk, and some people.
Yeah,
and
I heard Steve. I was about to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, Steve Bassett got up and kind of said, I don't agree with anything this guy says. I'll debate him at any time, anywhere, about anything he said. This is all complete BS. And then he never said anything.
What exactly was it about Robbie Graham's talk that he objected to?
It was there are other ways to look at the UFO subject than where are aliens, what planet are the aliens coming from. That was the whole basis of this talk. And
that seems pretty basic.
Yeah, but Bassett is having none of it because it goes against the church, against the UFO church, that there's aliens coming here from other planets, and we have to get that out to the people, and the government knows it, and blah 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 blah. And what brought that's just one idea. It's compelling, it's a decent one, but that's the only thing most people look at, and that was the point of his talk. And Bassett got his panties in a bunch over it. Wow. And then he never came. Bobby said he never called anything later to say, okay, where are we going to do the debate? anything. He just kind of threatened him up in public and took up a whole bunch of time, and then didn't talk to him ever again.
He threatened him?
Well, not threatened him. He just said, "I will debate you anytime, anywhere about this." And Robbie said,
He threw shade. He threw shade.
Yeah, is that it? Exactly.
UFO shade. Someone should write a book called UFO Shade.
UFO beef.
Oh God.
Yeah, well, we used to have that. It was called saucer smear, but that's gone now.
Saucer smear. Oh, wow.
Yes, that's absolutely correct.
So before I kind of get into the meat of this, it was just like Seraphiel said, it had that church kind of quality to it. But let's get into this. Who we met. This is interesting, guys, and I think this will. Robert, I've already talked to you about this.
So this guy sits
yesterday.
down in front of us during one of the presentations.
Yeah, Kathleen Martin, as she was finishing. Yeah.
And I'm like, man, who is this guy? He looks really familiar. He's got the like white slick backed hair and this like dyed black mustache, and he has this kind of Hollywood kind of street guy aura about him, Yeah, I'm like, who is this guy? And he's with this, like a blonde, and some other really weird dude who's kind of like a hanger on. And I'm like, Adam, man, who is this guy, man? He's somebody. He looks really familiar. And after her speech, he like just yells out from the crowd, "We really appreciate you. We need people like you to tell your stories. We believe you." And like everyone's clapping and everything. And and so he's walking by when we're upstairs, and like I was like, Adam, there he is, man. Go, hand him a flyer. So Adam,
well, first of all, you overheard him say something.
Yeah, I overheard him say something to somebody about, I'm the only one who ever got conclusive DNA evidence of human alien hybrid. And then something about I lost $200,000, and I just caught these little, I was totally interloping. And so Adam,
he had that air of importance about him. Like I'm an important figure in this whole game.
Are we supposed to get? Is this Daryl Sims?
No.
Daryl Sims?
Well, so then Adam goes up to him, and he's Dr. Jonathan Reed.
Yes.
And I didn't remember. I heard him on Art Bell, and like I couldn't place it. And he starts telling his story, and then this gal with him, like, kind of starts filling in the gaps. He's like, "Oh well, she can tell it better than I can. Go ahead, honey." And she gives us the whole story about the alien killing his dog and him killing the alien, and
with a stick.
They don't go into the alien being in the freezer and then getting the magical bracelet and stuff, because I don't think we had enough time. But he wasn't presenting. He didn't have a table or anything, and I kind of got this feeling. It's almost like, the washed-up rock star, and he was just kind of trying to hang out with the guys again and, remember me,
He's
I
like
guess.
Mickey Rourke and The Wrestler.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of doing the remember me thing, and but then then like we looked him up and was like, oh shit, I remember this on Art Bell. It's the alien. It's that weird obelisk black spacecraft in the woods and all this shit. And like I didn't even realize how deep it went with the magic bracelet and teleporting live on Mexican television and all that.
Yeah. They did this thing on Mexican television where he puts this bracelet on, right? And it supposedly like goes into his skin, and it allows him to teleport, and then he like teleports out and then teleports back. This is like...
to the crowd's applause.
Did you see it? It was really fast. Did you see it?
I asked Red Pill about him, and actually it was Red Pill that first told me about him, I guess, on one of the Where Did the Road Go roundtables, and he said that Masan brought him over to Mexico, and so that's probably what that was from. And he was like incredibly big in like South America, because I guess they just believed it for some odd reason. And so I want to get this. So Robert, I mean, you were talking about this like.
Well, yeah. When you first asked me about him, you said, "Do you know anything about Dr. Jonathan Reed?" And it was like one of those moments where you suddenly hear some name from the distant past that you haven't thought about,
like
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I haven't heard that name.
Wow, what's old is new again, I distinctly remember the first time I heard him on Art Bell, and the first thing I thought was, well, the alien looked a lot like a Muppet. But now I don't know anything about xenobiology, so it could be that aliens look like Muppets. I don't want to,
of course,
rule that out. But I just remember his entire demeanor when he was telling the story was very peculiar. He would constantly use the word literally when he was telling the story. It was almost like some weird subconscious tick to convince everyone that what he was saying was true. He would say, I was literally walking through the forest, and then this alien literally jumped out at me, and I literally shot it. And I thought, this guy is, a doctor. and then every time I heard him tell the story, and I heard him tell the story several times, he would like cry on cue at the exact same moment. And then I actually have a Dr. Jonathan Reed story. I have a friend of a friend who took a great interest in Dr. Jonathan Reed when he first came out of the woodwork. And this person would have had the wherewithal and the resources to help Jonathan Reed, both legally and financially, if it turned out that Reed's story was correct. Because obviously, if Reed was telling the truth, that's like a paradigm-busting story. So this person had an interest in actually helping him if the story checked out. So this person, who was a friend of mine, hired a private detective to follow around Jonathan Reed in Seattle. And if it wasn't Seattle, it was some city around, in Washington State. And the private detective followed Jonathan Reed around for a few days. And finally, the end of it all was when the detective followed Reed to a hotel, and Reed went to the hotel and went to a bank of phone booths, pay phones. This is like the late 90s. There was a whole line of pay phones in the lobby of the hotel. And Reed went there and got on the payphone, and the private detective went down 2 payphones down and was eavesdropping on the conversation. And basically he overheard Reed talking to whoever was on the other end, saying how easy it was to pull off a hoax, and how gullible all these people were. So that was the end of the friend of a friend of mine, who I won't name, basically said, okay, well, we can end it there. That kind of confirmed what I thought in the first place. But the interesting thing about people like Reed is there's a difference between, con artist and disinformant. And there have been con artists involved in ufology from the very beginning. So there's a difference between, say, Sean David Morton, who Greg has certainly has reported on, a convicted fraud, and then there are those people who are disinformers, And so Jonathan Reed, what category does he fall into? Does he fall into just fraud, or is he a disinformer who's been put up to the job? I don't know the answer to that question.
I do. He's a con.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would put it 95% or more in that category.
Yeah. You're probably correct.
Good point there, Rob.
Yeah, and there was the people that were around him, and he said that they always traveled, and like 6 of them traveled at the same time.
6.
Like that was his security detail, and like some of these the like the one guy that I saw, that he didn't look like very vicious to me. Like he could, but he's got this. Yeah, he's got this whole little group of true believers around him, though.
It sounds a lot like, have you ever seen the documentary The King of Kong, which is all about the guy who had the highest score on Donkey Kong, and he traveled around with an entourage, and he didn't want anyone to knock him off his throne? Mm-hmm. That kind of a vibe, like someone who's well known for something that's very insignificant.
Right, exactly. Yeah. To Tim or
I was
Greg,
surprised that he was there. When you first told me about it, I thought he was actually doing an official presentation there. But
yeah, and when
he must live in the area.
I don't know. That's the thing. That lady
he said
that
he lives
was
in Canada.
Yeah, he said now the lady that he was with said that she actually had lived here in Nashville. Or she still lives here in Nashville, or she lived in Knoxville now, or something, and like she was the one that told like the entire story, and we looked it up.
Well,
I think
he did what? What did he just stand there like next to her, like beaming with pride?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, just let her
not in
tell
his
it.
head. Maybe filled in a couple details.
Right.
Right, yeah. Jumped in to clarify a couple things. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, but Tim, Greg, do you guys have any thoughts or like memories of this guy? Because this is all kind of new to me.
I know. He was before my time, dude. He was. By the time I got mixed up in all this, he was the infamous Jonathan Reed. So he'd already acquired the infamous part. So I don't know anything. All I know really is from what I read on UFO Watchdog. So thankfully I wasn't mixed up in it.
When he was first announced what he was doing, the first thing I thought was, wow, this guy's full of crap. Just hearing the story, you're like, nah.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a certain level of common sense that comes into it.
Yeah. If there really was something there, you would have never heard about it from the channels he went through.
Right.
Well, my friend told me that when he first came out of the woodwork, he would have these presentations where he was selling these high-priced, very well-produced books that had glossy paper in it, hardback, large, with his photos reproduced in it. And my friend wondered where he was getting the money for this, because they were really lavish books. And so maybe he's correct when he says he lost $200,000. Maybe that's where I went into producing these books.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he's still around. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I was surprised too.
Yeah,
like you said, whoever compared it to the wrestler, it definitely sounds like that. Especially if he wasn't a part of the show. That's even kind of weirder.
But I mean, Art Bell brought him back, and when Art Bell came back with Dark Matter, he brought him back in 2013, which I was kind of surprised by. Yeah. But that's when I first.
I remember hearing that. Yeah, I remember hearing that. Yeah.
And when we asked him about it, I asked him about his story. He's like, well, you can just listen to Art Bell. Just type in Art Bell, Jonathan Reed, and it's all there online. He just seemed very, just kind of like he didn't really want to talk about it or whatever.
Weird.
That could be all
the whole idea. Yeah. So he's passive-aggressively looking for attention almost, where he's he wants everyone to notice him, but then he doesn't really want to talk about anything. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
No.
It's like the moment in The Wrestler where Mickey Rourke is recognized by the wrestling fan, and then suddenly Mickey Rourke gets pissed off and just leaves his job where he's cutting up meat at the deli.
Yeah.
There's some similar scene in Dr. Reed's life.
Yeah.
Apparently, Dr. Reed was a gas station attendant before all this happened.
That's what I was told by someone who lived in Washington State, that Dr. Reed was a gas station attendant when he was at the same time that he was going on Art Bell. I don't know. Did he ever say what the doctor was? He a PhD? Was he supposedly a PhD or a medical doctor?
Yeah, he was a child psychologist, and according to UFO Watchdog, it was saying that some of his early cons were saying that he was a child psychologist, and one of his patients would die, and he would get some woman feel sorry for him about it, and so he was doing a lot of shit way before he stumbled upon the UFO stuff.
Sounds like it.
Is there anything else we want to mention about him?
It makes me think that, in 2070, someone other than Greg Bishop or Adam Gorightly will write a sort of A is for Adamski book about the people you met at the Alien Expo.
Yeah, and what's interesting is we actually gave him the flyer for the conference that we're putting on, so I don't know. Maybe he might show up.
Oh, shit.
You never know.
Heard you guys talking shit about me.
Surprise guest, yeah. Well, it was Adam talking shit about you. Jonathan. I'm a big fan if you're listening.
He's going to kill an alien live on stage.
Yeah, that's the thing. Should we get him on the show? That's the question.
Play back what we're doing now, and then get his reaction to it.
Yeah,
and then he can
kind of messed it up now.
On the air or something through the phone.
Questions that make no sense whatsoever, and see what he does.
Just try to talk about other things other than what happened.
Nick's Redfern told me he was at a conference, and I believe I don't think it was Nick Pope, but somebody was giving a very sober question and answer on whatever the UFO topic they had spoken on. And his friend Jonathan Downs, who runs the Center for Fortean I think it's Center for Fortean Zoology. Anyway, in England, he stood up and he's raised his hand when he was called on. He said, "Sir, if grape jelly is called jam and strawberry jelly is called jam, why is orange jelly called marmalade?" That kind of question. Just start asking him questions that have nothing to do with what he's talking about, or really absurd questions about what he's talking about. It's like, well, what did your mother say when you first talked about this? Or, it's like, how many girlfriends have you had since you've perpetrated this weird story?
Since you killed the alien?
Weird like that, just to confuse him.
Well, we did listen to the Art Bell interview a little bit on their way back, and Art Bell just kept asking him just like these questions just to like move the time along, because this interview that he did with him in 2013 is over 3 hours long. And
wow.
and he just keeps asking, like, now, was that something you did often, was going out and walking in the woods? Did you do that a lot? Like, what's
So he wasn't actually moving the
conversation.
conversation.
Sponsors were like frozen bananas. Like that was the only sponsor. And those radios that you crank.
Oh yeah.
Those are the two sponsors.
Yeah.
Sequencing Company. Now back to the show, and and I guess I don't know if he was doing the prostate stuff then, because it was always, are you making too many trips? Yeah. So it was the like miracle prostate formula was one of them.
Yeah.
And buying gold was another one.
Oh,
and
that's a big
God,
one.
I can't remember all of them. I've heard a lot of them recently because I've been listening to some of these old shows.
So also at the Alien Expo, and this is going over to you, Tim, there was another guy there who had the same last name, incidentally, even though Jonathan Reed's, his real name is not Reed, but so this guy.
But do you know his real name?
Yeah, it's on UFO Watchdog.
Oh, okay. Does he explain why he changed it?
John Bradley Rudder.
Oh, that's right. But it's Rutter, not
right.
Like boat rudder. It's like Rutger.
There's like a
Like-
7-part UFO Watchdog article about him. I mean, it's extensive. It's crazy.
It's ridiculous.
Have you ever had the guy that runs the site, RJ Mufo, on?
No, we should though.
Royce Myers. You should have Royce Myers on. I had him on, and we had a great time talking about all these people he's exposed, and especially Morton, who you all know that I've got kind of a sticking point with him. Anyway.
Yeah, you went to the trial. You went to the trial and everything. But
I went to one day of the trial, and I went to the sentencing after they found him again after he ran out on his bail.
Yeah, that's a crazy story.
Yeah,
Weren't you at a party with Sean David Morton and Ken Thomas and Akaria S?
I wasn't
I
at
heard-
that party. I wasn't there with Acharya and Ken. I guess they were, but I've never been at a party with him. I've been at conferences where he's like, walked in right in the middle of my talk and yelled. And I was working on a TV show, and we had a meeting with a potential guest, and he walked in right in the middle of the meeting, like, because I think he was trying to get familiar with one of the producers, who was a woman. And they said, this is a private meeting, Mr. Morton. He said, okay, and he just sat down.
What was he yelling at the lecture?
Well, it was one of those things where you have to get people to come to your workshop. I hate that setup because it's such a bald-faced, we want more money out of you thing. But I signed up for the conference to speak. So anyway, but you have to give this talk saying, this is what I'm going to talk about in my workshop. So Morton was finished. He left the room. They set me up, and they didn't set it up properly. So I was just kind of stumbling along without slides. And about 5 minutes into my talk, he walked in the middle of the room, in the middle of like 300 or 400 people, stood in the middle of the room while I was talking and yelled, does anybody know where my talk is? I don't know where the room is. Does anyone know?
Oh, Jesus. What a carny move.
It was right in the middle of a sentence I was saying. I was like, what? So, and then when
It's actually like he just walked in the room and was like, hey, everybody, follow me.
Yeah, that's basically what it was. He was just trying to get people to come to his talk. But anyway, yeah, I did my talk. There were 3 people at it.
Because they were all at Sean David Morton's lecture.
Yeah, well, I walked out when I was done with the talk and answering questions, the 3 from the 3 people that were there, or the 1 from the 3 people that were there. I walked out the door to go back to my room, and Morton's sitting outside with like 50, 60 people around him holding court outside the door to my talk. And that's not as, that's just a happenstance. But like walking in the middle of one of my presentations and just yelling while I was talking, that. So there's a few other episodes, but that's why I kind of really have no love for him, and I'm glad he's in jail. And when he gets out, he'll probably pull the same stuff. He's trying to pull the same stuff from in jail right now. He's asking for money.
Amazing.
Adam should interview him in prison. Could be like the Geraldo Manson interview.
Yeah, Adam, you should definitely do that.
Yeah.
Sean's like carved a swastika into his forehead and gets up on the chair and starts acting crazy. He's like, "Where's my life? Does anyone know where my lecture is?" He's jumping up and down the chair.
I don't know if he could get on a chair. The guy, when I was at the trial, I saw him leave the room during a break to go to the bathroom, and he barely fit in his suit. Actually, he might lose weight in prison.
That's true. Is his wife also in prison?
Yes, not as long though, because at the sentencing during the trial, after the trial during the sentencing, she read her lawyer read a big long statement like, "I screwed up. I don't know. He made me do everything. It was stupid of me. I'm never going to talk to him again. I realize I did wrong. I'll never do it again." And Morton's like still trying to argue the trial during the sentencing. That's why he got, I think, like 6 or 8 months more, or maybe more than that.
Jeez.
Do you know how long he was sentenced?
Right, he wasn't. Huh?
Do you know how long he's in prison?
I don't think it was very long. It was like maybe 5 or 6 years or something.
I see.
It wasn't long at all considering what happened. I guess when you defraud the government out of $140,000, I think it was more than that, maybe over $1 million. You only have to go to a nice guy prison for 5 years or something.
Nice.
Did he
You
have
should do that, Adam.
a lawyer, or did he represent himself?
Oh, he represented himself, which was why it was so entertaining.
6 years. 6 years in prison.
Yeah. Okay.
He represented himself, and he managed to only get 6 years. That's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah. I might call him if I need help.
Yeah, the judge was so patient with him, and I was sitting in the back like, "Why are you being nice to this guy?"
He was ordered to pay $480,322 in restitution to the IRS.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, I mean, I could go on about it.
I'm sure he'll pay it all back.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you know what he did is as soon as they got the money, they put it in 3 or 4 bank accounts, bought a couple of cars and everything just so they could hide the money and have assets instead of have the money, I guess.
Amazing. I wasn't he on Ancient Aliens a lot? Like when it first started?
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, I think he was. So I wonder, those shows are probably still being shown.
Yeah, whatever anybody wants
possibly
to say, he's automatically an expert at it. He used to find out what it's like remote viewing camp. It's like, "Oh, I've been a remote viewer forever." It's like, really? You never talked about it before, 2 or 3 books on it came out. So that kind of stuff.
This is becoming a roundtable about charlatans.
Yeah.
So I heard Sean David Morton in an interview once say that when he was a kid, when he was 10 years old, his parents took him to a dinner party and at that dinner party was Ayn Rand and Stokely Carmichael. And I thought, this should be a one-act play. Sean David Morton at 10, Ayn Rand and Stokely Carmichael. What dinner party is this?
I don't know. I guess he took Ayn and whatever Rand literally and ran his life like that.
So let's get into this, Tim, because I want to preface this and say I don't think this guy is a charlatan, but we also met this guy named Tom Reed, and I know that you've been helping this guy out. So what's his deal?
Oh, slow down. Let's not use the term helping this guy out. I know Tom. He's a good dude. I just became acquainted with him recently, like this summer. He's the I don't know if he's behind the monument, but he's certainly like the face and the spokesman of the Sheffield, Massachusetts UFO monument, which is like this giant, very like massive cinder block that has a plaque on it that's dedicated to a UFO event that happened 50 years ago on September 1st. So I don't know, whatever, I guess 69. Yeah. And there's all this controversy. The monument's massive. Google it, folks. It's huge. And it's the height of like a person. And anyway, so him and the town have been battling for years over this thing. And the town keeps telling them to move it. They keep finding sort of like loopholes to get them to move it. And finally, this third time, the town took it away, and hid it in a secret place. Yeah, it's actually kind of a funny story. Yeah, they hid it in a secret place. Tom understandably got very upset, and so then, from what I understand, things got litigious. And it's not official yet, but I'm under the impression that the monument should be released at some point. Hopefully by the anniversary, but we're not really sure. So it's quite a saga. It's quite a strange story. It's kind of like very befitting of ufology that like the monument is taken away and hidden in a secret warehouse somewhere. And there was like fear. Tom was, when I talked to him, he was very concerned that they were going to like use the law, like because no one like technically owns it. It's very murky who owns it. Mm-hmm. Tom said he owned it, but the town says they don't know who owns it. And there was concern that like they were going to just blow it up, just to get rid of it once and for all, because like technically no one claimed it in like 30 days. So it was a bit of a little mini saga, mini local UFO saga up here. But it sounds like it's all going to work out for the best. We hope.
So yeah. This just commemorates just like a sighting that he and others had that I guess is pretty substantiated.
Yeah, he could tell you more about how it's substantiated. Yeah. I know he was profiled on ABC News, and it's gotten a lot of publicity. It's fairly well known. It's called like an otherworldly encounter. That's how they describe it. I think there's like an abduction involved in it. But I really don't know the specifics of like the case per se. All I know is he was mixed up in it as a young kid. So he was an experiencer of the Sheffield UFO incident. And he's a good dude. He's passionate nice about this. Yeah. He's really passionate about this stuff and about the case, which is good because, not a lot of people have heard about it. But it's funny because like more people have heard about it thanks to the fact that the monument apparently is like such a nuisance to this like very puritanical town. They don't, from what I gather, like they don't really want a UFO monument, and it's not like they had to hire like professionals to come and cart this massive concrete block away. It wasn't something it wasn't something you and I, Adam, could have gone down and like picked up and put in the back seat of my Toyota. This was like they needed a giant truck and shit.
Yeah, just a massive big hunk of stone.
Apparently, they don't want to turn their town into a place that makes buttloads of money off of UFO.
Right, exactly.
Every other community, it's like, yeah, bring it on. Hey, it's a big thing. Look at Roswell. I mean, they're rolling in.
Yeah, Exeter too. A lot of these towns are leaning into it now.
There's a documentary in there somewhere, I think. Ken Burns should do a documentary on it.
On the stone?
Yes. Yeah, sure.
Maybe I'll do one. That's not too far from me. Maybe I'll drive out there and interview these people.
All you do is like take a bunch of still shots and then play music really, really, really slowly and pan over the still shots.
There you go. Multi-part Netflix documentary.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
8 episodes.
All right, so let's turn Seraphiel.
Oh boy.
If you've got any questions that you want to ask that we did not get to in our Woke in the 90s for these guys.
Yeah, what were some of the I guess, if you guys heard or are familiar with what we did for Woke in the 90s, we kind of talked about all this alternative conspiracy culture in the 1990s. We talked about the zine scene a little bit with Adam Gorightly and stuff, but were there any, do you guys have any favorite zines from the time? Or I know, Bishop, you were pretty involved with that.
Yeah, I can't remember. My favorite zines had nothing to do with UFOs. They were like, I liked Crap Hound. Which was a Sean Terahachi, I think. He is also the person behind, what was that great site? Liartown. But during the zine thing back in the 90s, he had something called Crap Hound, which was just basically clip art for people doing zines. It was just pages and pages and pages of weird clip art that you could use in your zine.
That's cool.
So that was amazing. There was one called... there were tons of them. In fact, there was a whole magazine devoted to a zine devoted to the zines called Fact Sheet 5.
Oh, yes. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, it would review all the zines. I got my friends and I on Excluded Middle got favorably reviewed a few times, which is fine because most of the zines were favorably reviewed, except for just ones that were absolute garbage, which there were a few of those too. There was one magazine that was all just about... what was it called? I remember the I can't remember the name of the magazine, but the review said a silly zine about poops and farts. That was the whole zine. That's all it was about, poops and farts. So, you could make a zine about anything, but the really good ones like Crash Collusion, my friend West Nations did that. My friend Miles did Elf Infested Spaces, which was amazing. I tended to meet and talk to the people that had, magazines that were kind of simpatico with us. Paranoia came out of that whole scene.
Oh yeah.
God, there were so many good ones, but yeah, I mean, it was a huge movement, and I didn't go out. My friends, I didn't go. There's a lot of zines coming out. Let's go do a zine. Kind of like there's a lot of podcasts. Let's do a podcast. It didn't happen that way for us. I remember we were sitting at my friend Peter Stenzel's house having a party, and we're drinking beer. Robert Larson, the other co-founder, was there, and we were talking about UFOs and talking about the magazines that are out there, the publications, and we just like, God, they all suck. They don't talk about anything we want to talk about. They don't talk about Terrence McKenna. They don't talk about psychedelics. They don't mix it in with conspiracy. They don't mix it in with like weird science stuff. They don't mix it in with whatever. They're not academic. They're not. They don't think about what they're doing. It's just like silly stories. And we thought, well, why don't we do one? So we did, and that's how it started. It was just like, we don't like the zines that are out right now. Let's just do our own. So, and then we found out we're doing it. So it was amazing.
There was a lot of interesting intersection between, say, punk rock zines and conspiracy. Some of the first conspiracy articles I read was in Maximum Rock and Roll, which would often have articles by like Sherman Skolnick about.
I love Sherman Skolnick.
Yeah, or what was the other one? Flipside would have conspiracy articles in it, even though it was primarily a music magazine. And I liked all the ones that started out as book catalogs, like Newspeak, which was related to Paranoia. Paranoia grew out of Newspeak because that was Joan d'Arc's bookstore in Providence, Rhode Island. It started out as a book catalog, but then they were adding articles to it. So it became a conspiracy zine, or Flatland, Jim Martin's Flatland, out of Fort Bragg. The same thing. And so there was one called Prevailing Winds, which lasted a short amount of time. Paranoia, I wrote, the first thing I ever published was in Paranoia issue number 12 in 1996.
Wow.
Was there any effort to preserve any of this stuff?
What was that?
Was there any effort to preserve any of this, like scanning and things like that? I know there's a lot of, like in the kind of the punk rock and metal scenes and stuff like that, there's a lot of like reissues of books with like all the all the issues in like the book form. Is there anything like that in the conspiracy world? Because it's some great shit.
That's funny. I was just thinking about that and thinking that should be that's like a future Toshin book. oversized,
totally.
art book, with all these magazines, including Excluded Middle and all those from there was one called Critique, which was sort of a more high end conspiracy journal, and there were so many.
You said you wrote for Ken Thomas's too, the Steam Shovel Press.
Yes, I wrote for. There was one issue of Steam Shovel Press. I had an article in there about. It was called The Comic Book Conspiracy, and it was all about the overlapping world of conspiracy theory and the world of comic books, including the little-known connection between Jack Kirby and that Jack Kirby's best friend was the. I'm trying to remember his name right now. Jack Kirby's best friend growing up in the Bronx. Jack Kirby created Captain America and all the other Marvel characters. Jack Kirby's best friend was the man who was shot in the during the entire Iran-Contra conspiracy. There was an incident aboard a ship with these terrorists who came aboard the ship, and they killed an elderly Jewish man whose name escapes me at the moment.
Is this the Achille Lauro?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's right. And the man's name was it's on the tip of my tongue. But he was Jack Kirby's best friend, and it was weird, the connection that a secret group in the basement of the White House led by Oliver North eventually leads to Jack Kirby's best friend getting shot on a boat. The creator of Captain America, his best friend from childhood, was shot by a bunch of terrorists who were actually in league with Oliver North, who's working out of the White House in the basement. That kind of weird connection sort of fascinated me at the time. So that was one of the little nuggets out of which that particular article grew.
Klinghoffer?
Yes,
Leon
Klinghoffer.
Yeah.
He was Jack Kirby's best friend in the Bronx back in the 30s.
When you were doing, any of you were doing zines, what kind of crazy correspondence would you get from the mail? I'm sure you'd get some real wackos contacting you.
I think sometimes I was the wacko contacting other people. I had a conversation with Joan Ratcliffe, Joan D'Arc, who's the editor publisher of Paranoia Magazine. Yeah. She was really impressed when I told her that I had written a letter to Michael A. Hoffman.
Yeah.
Who wrote Secret Societies and Psychological Warfare. He published this pamphlet. He published a little pamphlet that was supposedly about Masonic assassinations, famous people who'd been killed by the Freemasons. And the first chapter was on Joseph Smith. The second chapter was on the Captain Morgan, Captain William Morgan, and Edgar Allan Poe. And the first two chapters, I was able to track his logic. But the Edgar Allan Poe one, it was basically, his argument was that Edgar Allan Poe had published The Cask of Amontillado, which was all about a man being bricked up behind masonry, and that this angered the Freemasons, so they assassinated Edgar Allan Poe for making fun of them in The Cask of Amontillado. So I wrote a letter to Michael Hoffman, and I said, I'm not quite following your logic here. Would you like to expand on it? And then he wrote this. Joan was shocked that he actually wrote me back this long screed, telling me how I obviously didn't understand English.
Wow!
And that all the evidence was right there. How could you miss it? And then Joan told me a story that she'd been told by Adam Parfrey, that Adam Parfrey had thrown some sort of party, and that he invited Michael Hoffman to the party because he had published some of this stuff, in either Apocalypse Culture or Secret Press. And Hoffman had shown up with his young son, and Adam had a picture on the wall that was framed of this close-up of a snake, like a serpent opening its mouth. It was a photograph, but it was framed. And Michael Hoffman turned to his son and pointed at the framed photo of the snake and said, "There's the true face of the Jew."
Oh my God!
Oh yeah. And Parfrey is Jewish, of course. Was Jewish.
Yeah.
So these are the colorful characters that one would interact with, because you'd find yourself, that was the wonderful thing about Paranoia Magazine. On the table of contents page, you'd have one person who was like fairly sane. Then you'd have like the crazy anti-Semite, and then you'd have like the militia kind of guy with their point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Or then you turn the page and there's something by, one of Tracy Twyman's early articles. So it was this absolute like anarchy of information and conflicting points of view. I thought that was the beautiful thing about it.
Yeah.
There was no editorial attempt to say, oh, this is not valid for this magazine. There was no purity test for the contributors.
Yeah, Ken would publish anything that was, coherent. Even if he didn't agree with it, Ken Thomas, he would publish it. It's like, Ken, come on. No, you know what? This person needs a voice. Like, okay, Ken, I don't think they do, but you know what? Kudos to you for doing it. I mean, just for the, like you said, Robert, just for the simple element of, balance and anarchy and all the other stuff, just the craziness of it.
Yeah, Ken mentioned that kind of tactic on the show.
Yeah, I think what do you call it, like politically schizophrenic conspiracy or something like that. I forgot his word for it, but
that's why we got along so well. We get along so well. He was the best man at my wedding, and for that matter.
It seems like we all kind of came from that way of thinking, and now it's just everything's so politicized where people won't even look at anything if it doesn't subscribe absolutely to their view.
Yeah, I have a friend who I teach with at CSC Long Beach. He's a published poet, a fine writer. His name's Clint Margrave, and he published an article on a website called Quillette, and the whole point of the article was simply that he advocating free speech. And it was particularly about this particular poet who had been sort of pushed out of the poetry community because he admitted that when he was younger, he had been part of this kind of white supremacy gang, but that he completely and I don't hold those views anymore, but he got pushed out of the poetry community for even admitting that he had once held these views. And so Clint wrote this article saying, well, that's, this is kind of ridiculous. I mean, if a former fascist is not allowed to change, then a fascist simply remains a fascist. Right? That's sort of counterproductive. And for writing this article, he was attacked by all these other poets on Twitter saying, how dare you? You're actually accusing him of being a Nazi. Wow. Because he wrote an article advocating free speech. And so advocating free speech equals Nazi.
Right.
Yeah.
In certain areas of the Twitter mob.
I am in no way right wing, but that is absolutely that's absolutely wrong. I mean, I would people may think I'm morally I have moral what's it we call it? I am not I'm advocating moral
ambiguity.
Ambiguity, yes, and I'm not at all. I mean, it's absolute free speech, no matter what, especially if you disagree with it. This is so not even an original point of view, but especially if you disagree with it, should be allowed to be, because it takes the mystique and everything away from it. I remember people used to laugh at Nazis, and that was the best. That was the best. Reaction you could possibly have. Now people get mad at it.
Well, I think not allowing for redemption is really some of the worst.
And that too. That's
pretty bad too. And also the mere act of suppressing the point of view, as Carl Jung would say, the more you suppress the shadow, the stronger it becomes. Exactly. It's completely the opposite of the effect that they're going for. Sometimes, since I have a conspiratorial mind, I sometimes wonder what effect are they going for? Are they in fact aiming for the opposite? Are they actually pro-fascist, and that's why they're doing this?
Yeah, exactly. California Uber Alles, remember?
Absolutely. But that, the Jones editorial decision to allow any point of view, as long as it was, semi-coherent, is, I think, the most valuable editorial point of view to have. I mean, that was sort of the point of Amok Books, which then became Feral House, was this anarchy of information. You'd have books written by, the Nation of Islam, and books written by Nazis, and it was all put together. It was just these were extreme points of view, and it wasn't coming from any particular area on the spectrum.
Yeah. I mean, he published like NAMBLA type stuff too, which is it was anathema then.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
yeah, right then it was an anathema. Right, exactly.
Well, and
and it just to push that boundary. It's like it's disgusting. It probably nobody should be allowed to act on it. But the fact that he would publish anything that was even near that kind of stuff I've though I didn't agree with it, I applauded the act of doing it.
And as you say, it's not an original thought, but unfortunately, it needs to be said, and that is the speech you agree with is not the speech you need to defend. You need to defend the speech that you don't agree with.
And we probably all believe in that free marketplace of ideas, and I don't think many people believe in that anymore. It's really scary.
And I should point out, because sometimes I'll listen to, say, conservative AM talk radio, and they'll be talking about the millennials and the snowflakes and et cetera.
Yeah.
And I deal with 18-year-olds. I deal with millennials all the time, hundreds of them every year, because I teach at CSU Long Beach. I teach creative writing classes. I teach English composition. So 95% of them are not like that. In fact, they're as frustrated by this as they are, particularly when I'm in a creative writing class. On the first day, I sit in the creative writing class and I say, hey, listen, you can write whatever you want in here. This is not a safe space. Because I can't predict what anyone else is going to write, and you can't have a creative writing class and have it be a, quote, safe space at the same time. That's impossible because creativity is not safe. Everyone has to be allowed to explore whatever they're going to explore, and we're going to critique it just based on the fact is, does it work as a story? Is this something that could be sold? And I have people come up to me and they say, oh, thank God, I was so relieved to hear that, because there are so many workshops at the university level where they'll tell you on the first day, this is what you can't do. And they'll hand you a piece of paper. I have colleagues who do this. They'll hand out a piece of paper with bullet points of all the things you cannot write about in a creative writing class. So I talk to 18-year-olds all the time, millennials, who are absolutely frustrated by this attitude, and there's a small vocal minority who will have this kind of crazy, insane point of view where they equate free speech with Nazism.
I have a friend that teaches at UC Irvine, and he teaches anthropology. But he said the exact same thing you did, and I was kind of surprised. He said, "Look, most of the kids aren't like that.
No,
it's just that you all hear about from any point of view really is the loudest, in general, the least subtle people. You don't hear from people that are more circumspect. Circumspect people don't yell a lot.
Right.
Well, that's right. And the squeakiest wheel gets the grease. And particularly universities are frightened of lawsuits. Yeah. So they will absolutely capitulate if someone complains, and that aspect of it can be frustrating. I had a student in my creative writing class came to me, and he's a musician. He plays in a band. He was playing at the House of Blues in Anaheim, and he came to me and he said he was going to be on the college radio show to promote the appearance that he and his band were playing. And he said to me, I got to watch what I say during the interview. And now keep in mind, it's not like he was saying, gee, I have to hide the fact that I'm actually a white supremacist. That's not what he was saying. He's saying, I have to make sure I don't say something that will be misconstrued.
Yeah, self-censorship. Yeah, right.
Self-censorship
is the world we live in now.
That's the worst of it. And so when I do a creative writing class, I really try to beat that out of them. Like you can't be writing worried about if I'm going to offend the Eskimo gay activist Christian fundamentalist in the corner of the room. If you're thinking about that, then you're not going to be creative. You just have to write what you want to write. And that doesn't mean you're not going to get criticized for it or people aren't going to jump on you. So you have to be willing to take that, of course. But the whole I have to be very careful in the workshop to tell people, listen, you're not critiquing the person who wrote the story. You're not doing a moral judgment on the character and what they said. Does it work as a story? And I have to do that more and more lately.
Robert, going back to you said you wrote a letter to Hoffman and everything. I never miss an opportunity to talk about as far as the popularization of James Shelby Downard, and those writings were in those first apocalypse culture books, of course. What was kind of the ripples of that throughout the conspiracy community? Because I know it changed a lot of the ways a lot of the conspiracy works, and the whole synchromystic idea really had a lasting impact that continues today. But I was just wondering about your personal take on any of that.
You know, I'm glad you asked me that, because I want to make something clear, even though despite what I just said about Michael Hoffman. I like Michael Hoffman's writing. I don't share his political points of view, but his writing at times reaches a kind of level of weird, dark poetry that I've not seen in anyone else.
And you can see it you can see how much of it was probably his writing in those Downard manuscripts.
Yes, I suspect that much of it was. I think he was taking Downard's information and kind of reshaping it. And I don't know if that's the case with the what is the book that Downard wrote and Feral House published?
Carnivals of Life and Death.
Carnivals of Life and Death, which I understand. In fact, Adam, did you not interview Adam Gorightly, and he said he was working on a reconstructed version of that?
No, he has the manuscripts for basically the rest of the autobiography.
It's part 2.
Yeah.
And he's working on that right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm very
looking
eager.
Forward to that.
Absolutely.
My question is, does anyone here know why Adam Parfrey didn't publish the entire manuscript? Why did it just cut off?
I don't know. Gorightly might have a better take on that, because, he won't. We don't know where Gorightly got all that, but I'm sure he was in communication with somebody.
I missed the beginning of it.
The Carnivals of Life and Death by James Shelby Downard, because when Adam Parfrey published it, at the end it says something like the rest of the manuscript was lost or he never finished it. So I was surprised when later on Adam interviewed Adam Gorightly, and Gorightly said, "Oh yeah, I know, the entire manuscript does exist. It's like double the length of the published version." So I just wondered why Adam Parfrey chose not to publish the entire manuscript. Greg, do you know anything about that? Or
no. I'm kind of racking my brain about it, but no, I've never heard anything about it. Gorightly may know.
Well, I think there's just so much material.
I do know some of the he got in with people like who did the I can't remember. I remember seeing Parfrey get in a fight with a guy on the elevator. It was the guy that wrote what was it? It was that giant self-published manuscript. I can't remember the name of the something mind control. Wow. Okay, I'm totally lost. If I think of it, I'll say later. But go ahead.
You're talking about you're not talking about Jim Keith, are you?
No.
Oh, okay.
Operation Mind Control, I think it was called.
Board? Walter Board?
Okay, it wasn't Board. It was somebody else. Yeah, that was Bowart's. Yeah. I don't think anybody ever actually published that. It was just that manuscript that was running around, a few different copies of it.
Well, which Operation Mind Control?
Yeah, was that ever published as full book?
It had originally been published back in 1978 by a major publisher. I can't remember who it was. It was like Simon Schuster or something like that. And then later on, Jim Martin published the Flatland edition, which was an expanded version, but it was in a spiral-bound notebook.
That's the one I was thinking of. Okay. I didn't know the total history of it. Ask me about. I'll tell you. Conspiracy, not so much.
Would you say Parfrey was yelling at someone over it? What was going on?
No, not over Walter Board. It was I can't remember the guy's name. He was he had a manuscript about his adventure or something with mind control in his life, and he came to speak at the UFO conference once in Laughlin, and Parfrey had given him an advance to do a book, and he ran in the elevator and yelled at Parfrey when Parfrey said, "You gonna give me my money back or finish the book?" I can't remember the name of the writer. I could probably Google it and find out pretty quick.
Well, I think part 2 didn't happen on Feral House. I think there's just so much material. I think he intended to put out part 2, but I think that part 1 of Carnivals of Life and Death was kind of a flop. I think it just didn't sell well.
That's unfortunate. I actually, does anyone know if Michael Hoffman contributed to the writing of that, or was that purely Downard?
It seems like it's Well, I don't know. There a lot of it is written very simply and seems like it's mostly just Downard, but then there's a few like introductions and things as total Hoffman channeling. So
it's some crazy shit. It really is.
And then I think that Brandon and Hoffman kind of have some links there too. I've done my own little research, and there's definitely some gets a little sketchy.
When I was reading Carnivals of Life and Death, I kept thinking, I want to see the movie of this.
Yeah.
I want to see the scene where the kid like kills like 50 Klansmen with a
his little
with
pop
a slingshot.
gun.
Yeah. With a pop gun. Yeah, and the weird thing about it was on a psychological level was there are all these scenes where as a kid, like he's a 10-year-old kid, and he managed to wipe up the floor with all these full adult Klansmen. And then later on, when he was like 22 or something, two guys come up and grab him on the bridge and throw him in the back of the car. And I was thinking, why was he more powerful when he was 10?
He was like a young Indiana Jones. Pretty much.
Yeah, he was like Popeye or something.
How were the ripples in the conspiracy community at the time that King Kill 33 really got, I guess, a lot bigger and stuff? What was that like? I mean, I know it was pretty influential.
I think it overlapped with William Cooper's going around with the film saying that the chauffeur killed Kennedy. Because Cooper would talk a lot about the Freemasons, and then you had this document, King Kill 33rd Degree, which also pointed the finger at the Freemasons. So I think there was an interesting overlap of conspiracy theory there with Cooper and Michael Hoffman kind of making the rounds at the same time. I think people still refer to Hoffman and King Kill 33rd Degree, though they may not know that that's what they're referring to. There's probably been a lot of watered down iterations of it that have floated over the internet, and people don't even know what the original source material is anymore.
Have you heard the?
I think it's actually still influential.
Brandon actually just released you can get a CD from him of those recordings called Sirius Rising that Robert Anton Wilson mentioned in Cosmic Trigger. You can actually get that from Brandon now. He made like a little commercial CD.
Yes, in fact, I'm holding it in my hand as we speak, and Lauren Coleman sent me a copy. So
cool.
Thank you, Lauren Coleman.
You're with like minds tonight.
Yeah. I really want a photocopied, circulated King Kill 33. I really want like an original, photocopied, circulated in the underground version of it. For my collection, I've got everything else.
I remember Adam Gorightly mentioning in his interview that he did with you, Adam, that I guess Adam Parker had made some sort of editorial edits in the original manuscript of Carnivals of Life and Death.
Yeah, I do remember him saying that, yeah.
I wondered what those edits were and why they were made, if it was just purely for narrative purposes or... I guess we don't know.
You should harass Gorightly because I am, and eagerly awaiting that.
Yeah. Was there anything else that you wanted to go over?
Oh no, we should probably move off of Downard before we just go into this rabbit hole.
Yeah, it'll just be Downard. So here's a real serious conspiracy for you guys, and I regret in the first roundtable that we did that I did not cover this, but since we lost power right in the middle of it, I didn't get a chance to cover it. And one of the big things that I remember from the 90s, so like late 80s, early 90s, was the whole Elvis is alive conspiracy. So, Tim, I know that you wrote an article about that a couple of years ago.
One more time? I'm sorry. I lost you there for a minute.
Oh, the Elvis is alive conspiracy. And you wrote an article about it a couple of years ago.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's an interesting case. Yeah. It's I don't know. It's weird. I interviewed Mickey Moran. What I find interesting about it is it's sort of like it's like a dying realm, if you will. I don't know if you call it even a field or anything. It used to be. I kind of checked out just now. I apologize because like I'm unaware of like most of the stuff you guys were talking about except for King Kill 33, which I did know was from Hoffman. But I came way after the zine scene and all that shit. I'm a baby of the internet. So I'm like, what the hell are these guys talking about? But yeah, no. So the Elvis thing, I got interested in that because I like doing as much weird shit as possible on my show. And what I like, Mickey Moran's like the last dude left, essentially. And it's an interesting thing. It sprung up when Elvis died, obviously. And to connect it to like what you guys were talking about just now, what amazed me, because I wasn't around for the Zine thing, so I have no idea really, like, I can't quite comprehend it, I think it's like talking to a kid today about, like, what life was like before the internet, so, like, but I was blown away that apparently there were, like, not just, like, a zine, but, like, 4 or 5, like, competing Elvis is Alive zines, which I wish and hope somebody has somewhere, because that would be so much fun to read. I wonder, like, how you could possibly, like, stretch that theory out into, just a zine about that. It's like, Jesus, dude, what do they even put in this thing? And the whole thing was pretty popular for a while. There were books, there were TV shows and shit, and it was like, I think a major network TV special type thing.
Yeah, there were two of them. There were two of them, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting to me is that, like, it's dead, essentially. Like, there's no... It was once, I don't know how much you'd call it, like, thriving. It was a community. Let's just say it was a community.
Yeah.
And now, seems to be just Mickey Moran, maybe somebody else, maybe, 1 or 2 other people sort of just carrying it on, which is, to me, like, fascinating, because I knew you wanted to talk about this tonight, and I was kind of thinking about it as I was driving around today, and it was like, there's a lot of shit like that that's kind of turning that way now. It's kind of sad. It's interesting. It's very, like, it makes me more sad the more I think about it, but it's like, back in the day, like, there were people who, I presume there were, like, more people talking about, like, the fucking Bermuda Triangle than there are now, which is, like, nobody.
Yeah.
And, like, spontaneous human combustion, and, like, and the Elvis is Alive thing. It's, like, just kind of funny and sad in a way that it's, like, these fields, these theories, these ideas, they're only being carried on by, like, 1 or 2 people that are left. And they're not, they're not young people, I think I interviewed one dude who was, like, a young moon hoax guy. And that was it, But even moon hoax is like that. So it's just kind of interesting. It's like these things flourish, they couldn't really hang on in the internet age or something. And the people who kind of shepherded the research, they died or moved on with their lives. That's what happened with this Elvis thing. I mean, they were like players, in the field of Elvis is Alive that would be, equivalents of like a Stan Friedman or something. It was like,
I totally get that. Yeah.
The seasoned veteran of Elvis is Alive
right.
research. They're all fucking gone,
Let's not forget the Bill Bixby documentary from the late 80s.
Yeah, of which there were 2. There were actually 2 of those. Yeah.
Oh, there were 2?
Yeah, there were 2 of them. Yeah.
I did not know that.
You can still find them on YouTube, actually.
I remember when the first one aired.
Well, here's the other part that I find kind of interesting, too, in a sense. This is like the only... I guess there'll be other conspiracies down the line because other people think that other people fake their death. But it's like this is, essentially the conspiracy theory has to die. Within the next 10 or 15 years, it naturally will die out because what difference will it make if Elvis faked his death if it was if he would have been 100 years old? It's like, okay, Jesus, no.
Right.
At some point, it becomes a pointless conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
It's like he would be 82 or 84 or something now. It's like he's not coming back.
Yeah.
And when he would have been 100, it's like he's not going to show up. He's not going to show up at 100. It's over. He didn't, if he faked his death.
Perhaps fans of Bubba Hotep will be interested in delving into the theory.
And the other part that's funny is the evidence for the Elvis is Alive thing is these weird mistakes and shit. And it's like, why would you go through all the trouble of faking your death if you were the most famous celebrity in the world, only to tip off, only to leave? Why would you leave little clues behind? That doesn't really, to me, that doesn't make any sense. It's like you're really going out on a limb by faking your fucking death, Elvis. Don't push it, dude. So
yeah, that's a good point. I never really thought about that, but yeah, he would be I think 83 now, or 84 years old, and so
Yeah.
you know, if he is, even if he would still be alive, he's an extremely old man, and he might just be dead anyway.
It's pretty old for how hard he was partying.
Right. If he even faked it in 1977, you know, he'd probably be dead. He'd probably be dead anyway. What I found interesting about looking at some of that stuff from especially the Bill Bixby documentaries, or really I hesitate to call them documentaries, was some of the like stupid reenactments that they did, which were very much in line with all the stuff that you saw on TV around that same time, like, you know, Unsolved Mysteries and all that. And it had that same kind of like mysterious and like ghostly air about it. Like there's one where the lady goes up and she takes like Elvis's picture, and he just kind of like runs, he just kind of yells, and then like all these guys come out, they almost look like government guys, and they like escort him away. And there's another one where Elvis is talking to this woman, and he like walks out into the light, you know, basically. And then there was another one that's on there where it's almost like a Bigfoot sighting. Like this woman is taking pictures of Elvis, and it looks like Bigfoot pictures, you know. And it's so very much in the same vein of Unsolved Mysteries and Search of Sightings. I think that was a little later, but all that kind of stuff had that same kind of feeling. And what I compared it to, that Elvis is alive thing, and I didn't know then, was it was almost this complete ripoff of the UFO cover up live.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it had that same kind of feeling to it. Yeah. Because
I wonder if it was like same network and shit. I bet you they saw how successful that was.
Yeah,
and just kind of did it for like something. They're like, what could be crazier than that? Like, well, how about fucking Elvis is Alive?
Right. It was like 2 or 3.
Was it a live documentary? Was it a live event? Like,
yeah, it was
live?
a live event, and like I watched a little bit of it with my dad, because we remember it. Like I was probably like 13 or 14 when it came on.
I'm sure it's on YouTube.
Yeah, it's
gotta
there.
Be on YouTube.
And like it's live, and like a Howard Stern prank caller calls in.
That was Elvis.
Yeah. And it just had the same kind of production values that you just see in like all these kind of paranormal shows, and you know, it's just that you still see in those kind of paranormal
I was gonna
shows.
say I don't watch any of these shows, but the last show I remember was like UFO Files, and that was kind of the whole thing. I remember seeing it at Greg's house when I was there, and like John Greenwald was like a producer on it, and he must have like doubled as a fucking reenactment actor, because they did like a scene of like a UFO event, and like a guy in his car and like the light going over it, and we're both like kind of like glanced at the TV, and we're like, that's fucking John Greenwald. So I don't know if you remember that or not, Greg, but it was funny.
Like some army guy looking through files or something.
Yeah, it was like something like that.
My wife said he looks like. Why can't I think of names anymore? What's wrong with me? He looks a little like Leonardo DiCaprio's cousin or something.
Yeah, he does kind of. I could see that.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, you said you're really a product of the internet, getting into this stuff. What are some of those early internet communities that really kind of tipped you off to all this weird shit?
Oh, geez. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't really mixed up in a lot of communities. Back when I got into it, I listened to Coast, and Coast to Coast had like a message board, and I posted on there all the time. And that's essentially how I got in with Coast to Coast in the long run. But
cool.
Yeah, but that was about it. I didn't really get into like Above Top Secret or anything like that. It was different back then. I mean, I guess there are some. That's the only one I can really think of as like sort of a thriving like community that I remember. There were other ones like Book of Thoth, I think, was one that was kind of like kicking around. But yeah, I ended up just making my own little spot pretty much.
Cool. That's the way to do it.
Kind of had to.
Well, is there anything else that we really want to cover, or any thoughts on Robert? You got any thoughts on the Elvis is Alive stuff?
I don't have. I'm still reeling from the fact that there was a second Bill Bixby Elvis documentary. I have to run now to YouTube and find it. I was just thinking, as you were talking, it just occurred to me, connecting back to what we were saying about the zines in the 90s was, what's interesting is we started out talking about Dr. Jonathan Reed and how what's old is new again. I recently went to an event that was in Long Beach, and I had found a flyer for it on campus, and it said Long Beach Zine Fest. And I thought, oh, what's this? So I went, and there was a gigantic room, and I went in. There were all these kids, I mean, like late teens, early 20s, and they were all sitting there selling their zines.
Wow.
And very, very few of them were conspiratorial, but there were a few that were more like paranormal in nature. But in fact, I ran into a former student, one of my creative writing students, who had taken two of the stories that she'd written in my workshop the previous semester, and she stapled them together, photocopied them and stapled them together, and she was selling them for like $1 each. And she'd drawn her own little illustrations in it, and it was a room full of this stuff. And I realized that all these kids had understood something that Marshall McLuhan knew. Marshall McLuhan said that every technology, when pushed to its extreme, will flip into its opposite function. So in the beginning, the internet was advertised as, this is the way to get around the guardians at the gate, the gatekeepers. It's the Wild West. You can say whatever you want on the internet now. Now, these kids who are like in their early 20s realize, oh no, if I post something on Twitter or on Instagram and someone takes offense to it, like that can be the end of my entire life. And so they realized, oh, wait, if I just photocopy this stuff and sell it for $1 each, if you can't link to it, it doesn't exist to these trolls who will try to bring you down. And if you can't link to it, it just doesn't exist. So they've gone back to the zines, and they realize, oh, they're putting a flyer on a telephone pole, then whoever sees it, and then it can't be taken out of context and then shared 1,000,000 times. So it was very interesting to see that there was this whole burgeoning new zine scene going on, which I really hadn't been aware of. And as I said, most of it wasn't conspiratorial. It was mostly art, stories, fiction, scatological art, And as I said, there was a few that was covered the paranormal. But it was just fascinating to see this. What's old is new again. The pendulum swings back and forth, and people find an old medium and then make it work for them.
So what are you guys' thoughts for the future of these paranormal, conspiracy, UFO communities? And do you see it going back more local, more community-based again? Or
that's a good question.
Do you think it's... Yeah. What do you guys see?
Oh, God. I have no idea. I haven't really thought about it.
I don't know if it'll be local, but I think what I have hoped for a long time is that it'll be interest-based and global, or at least national, where you don't have a top-down organization determining what people should be looking at, thinking where the information goes. What you have is 1,000 different organizations all doing their own thing and fighting for supremacy on the internet, I guess. But at least that it allows for this is what we were talking about with the free speech thing earlier. It allows for a variety of viewpoints, opinions, and all that to be equally heard. And I think that's the future of it. I mean, it already is the future of it. People are already doing it. And I think that's great. The other thing I think is happening, and I've been giving talks about this, is that science and academia has taken this stuff more seriously, at least the paranormal stuff. I don't know about the conspiracy stuff.
Right.
And that at some point, if we're lucky, it will supplant most of ufology, and ufology won't even exist anymore as a discipline. It'll just be as a sub, heading in physics, anthropology, psychology, forensic science. All this stuff is going to be subsumed into that. I hope that happens. I see it happening already, and so that people that are a little bit more circumspect and have the money and have the connections and have the I don't know about degrees. You don't have to have a degree to do good work, but the people that are trained to look at things in a sober, deductive way will take over the study of the subject and move it forward that way. And I don't think that science is going to solve it. It just isn't. But a combination of science, creativity, right brain stuff, artists, out of the box, lateral thinkers, combined with somebody who has scientific or academic training, will be what moves the field forward. And indeed, that's already happening.
I think that's kind of what I felt when I saw Ray Hernandez give his speech, and it was. I don't think a lot of people got that he was almost like prophesizing the end of that kind of, insular UFO world.
Yes, right.
Yeah, old school ufology is like dead pretty much now.
Yeah.
It is. It's kind of like it's archaic.
Yeah.
I ask people why they're still in MUFON, and their only answer is, with all the problems with it, their only answer is it's the only game in town.
Right.
So, but the thing is that people, I tell these people, it's like, well, why don't you go out and do your own thing? Why don't you? But most people don't want to, because that's work and that's hard, and and it means you have to actually, instead of just saying, here's a case, why don't you take a look at it, or going to the conference and seeing 5 people speak about some sort of UFO porno, you got to actually go out and look at the stuff yourself and think about it and talk to people and do something about it. And most people won't do that, which is why MUFON will probably exist for quite a while. But as Tim said, it's kind of a dead game right now.
What fascinates me about the conspiracy theory, at least, is the recent mainstreaming of it, in the sense that in the wake of the Jeffrey Epstein story, I read an article, I think it was an opinion column in the New York Times, or it was some mainstream newspaper like that, and the whole tone of the article was sort of wringing their hands, saying they were worried that all this evidence of conspiracy is going to give people the mistaken impression that there are in fact conspiracies going on.
Oh wow.
And it was fascinating reading it. And so on one hand, there's that. And then on the other hand, just on August 1st on Yahoo News, Jana Winter on 8/1/19 published an article called "Exclusive: FBI Document Warns Conspiracy Theories Are a New Domestic Terrorism Threat."
Yep.
I
saw that.
saw that.
You saw that, okay. And then what was interesting is the last paragraph says, the FBI said another factor driving the intensity of this threat is, quote, the uncovering of real conspiracies or cover-ups involving illegal, harmful, or unconstitutional activities by government officials or leading political figures, unquote. The FBI does not specify which political leaders or which cover-ups it was referring to. So the whole tone of this FBI document was, we have to be careful of these people who are believing in conspiracy theories and they're going out and acting on it. And then it ended with, and the problem is there really are conspiracies. So it was. Yeah,
I did read that.
This interesting paradox. I mean, in talking about what's old is new again. It just so happened that the day that Jeffrey Epstein's suicide was announced, I happened to be reading the new research volume, Robert Downtown Wilson, Beyond Conspiracy Theory, which is this manuscript that they research, V. Vale was originally going to do back in the 80s, but they never published it. And so they found the manuscript and just published this very long interview with Robert Downtown Wilson from 1985, in which he talks a great deal about the mysterious suicide of Roberto Calvi, who was this, at the time in the 80s, this was a major conspiracy theory that was spoken about all over Europe. A P2 Lodge, exactly. Roberto Calvi was a banker who hanged himself, supposedly, beneath the Blackfriars Bridge in London, and he had just fled from Italy because he was involved in this major banking scandal that had cost the Vatican hundreds of millions of dollars. So there were theories that the Vatican had killed him, or the Mafia had killed him, or the Freemasons had killed him, because he was also a member of this P2 Masonic Lodge in Italy that had almost taken over Italy, had almost caused a fascist coup of the Italian government. And so you had all of these people. The original autopsy report on Calvi said that it was suicide, and everyone said, "Oh, come on, that's ridiculous." So they did a second autopsy report where they said, "Well, it's unconfirmed. We don't know if it was suicide or not." And I'm reading Robert Downton Wilson talking about the Calvi suicide. And at that same moment, the Jeffrey Epstein suicide was announced on the radio. And it was almost the same circumstances. This very powerful figure who is the nexus point of all these vying conspiratorial political influences, and people immediately seeing that there was something suspicious about it, despite the fact that the mainstream media is telling you no, it was just a suicide. Meanwhile, you have people like there was an article in mainstream newspapers where a former inmate at the same cell block where Epstein was kept came out and said, "There's no way he could possibly commit suicide. I was in that same cell block. I know." So you have mainstream newspapers reporting on this, and it was such a mirrored story with the Roberto Calvi thing and everything Robert Anton Wilson was talking about back in 1985. It was just this fascinating experience. It was reading this little book, which I recommend, Robert Anton Wilson, Beyond Conspiracy Theory. It's like getting a letter from a friend who had died, 10 years earlier, and you find it in the attic, and you realize that he wrote it a long time ago, and you open it, and suddenly this person who has been dead many years is talking to you from the past. That's exactly what it's like reading this book. And what's amazing about it is just when you're reading it, and he's talking about all of these conspiratorial events in 1985, that really nothing's changed. It's just the names and the figures that are different. So just like Roberto Calvi now has gone down the memory hole, and very few people know who Roberto Calvi is, even though he was on the tip of everyone's tongue in 1985. Eventually Jeffrey Epstein will be, 30 years from now. Who's Jeffrey Epstein?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
How this happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too. Like when the Epstein thing happened. Even the president tweeted something about it, but it was like the Clinton death list all of a sudden was back in the news again.
Yeah.
It's like,
right.
Oh my God, are you serious? And people I know were like sharing shit about the Clinton death list, and it's like, come on, dude. Like, really? Like, they're powerful enough to kill some dude like in a supermax prison, but they can't fucking fix the election so they win? Like, they can only kill people. That's their superpower. We can't rig elections. We can't make it to Wisconsin. We run shitty campaigns, but fuck, can we kill people? We are just real. We're real good at just killing people.
Well,
fuck getting elected, just kill them.
All the memes I saw that day were all, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton killed Jeffrey Epstein, completely ignoring the fact that Donald Trump is in the same book.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, well, people put like tweets, they juxtapose them right next to each other. Where like, depending on what camp you were in, it was like either the Clintons definitely did this or Trump definitely did this. That was another fascinating parallel with the Roberto Calvi thing, because Robert Anton Wilson makes, he's almost using Roberto Calvi as a symbol of perceptual psychology, and that if you hated the Freemasons, it was obvious that the Freemasons killed Calvi. If you hated the Vatican, then the Vatican killed Calvi. If you hated the Mafia, the Mafia killed Calvi.
Perfect.
And the same thing with Epstein.
Well,
exactly. Yeah.
Let's leave it there, guys. I mean, this has been very fascinating. I enjoyed this conversation. Awesome. Let's go down the list, guys, of people that what you got going on. What's next for you guys? We'll start with you, Greg.
Yeah, I was on hiatus, or have been, on my show, and I'm about to come off of it with a couple of pretty surprising guests, but I will announce that when it comes up within the next week or so. So Radio Mysterioso will be back on probably not a regular schedule, but at least a schedule where I will start releasing shows again.
Nice.
So that's the next thing going on now.
Looking forward.
Yeah, I've missed listening to it. And Robert.
I just published a new nonfiction book called Bela Lugosi and the Monogram 9, which I wrote with my friend Gary D. Rhodes, who's a film scholar and the head of the film department at the University of Florida. And I have a book of fiction coming out next year in March called Widow of the Amputation and Other Weird Crimes, which is a collection of 4 novellas that all take place in Southern California, and each novella is designed to get weirder as you go along through the book. And the title story, Widow of the Amputation, is all about a road trip with Charles Manson and the severed head of Mary Magdalene. So you'll love it.
And I definitely be prepared in October. I want to get you back on for the Bela Lugosi book.
That would be excellent.
So but I think that's pretty appropriate for Halloween time. And last but not least, very famous Tim Binnall. who is going to be hanging out with us here in Nashville in October.
Yes, I was kind of like Rope-a-Dopey there and be like, yeah, I got nothing going on. I'm gonna be. You can give the people the dates. Strange Realities Conference, right? Strange Realities
October
Conference.
19th at SIR Nashville.
And I'm going to be doing The People of Flat Earth, a discussion on the history of the Flat Earth movement, bringing it up to the present time, the big, sort of like its renaissance in recent years and why that's happened, and where it's going from here. So people really loved it in Baltimore, and I enjoyed doing it, so I'm looking forward to rolling it out for the folks at the Strange Realities Conference. It's going to be fun. So, folks, you definitely want to make it out to this. It's going to be a blast.
Absolutely. That's strangerealitiesconference.com. If you guys get your tickets, $30 prepaid, $40 at the door. So, thank you, gentlemen. It's been a blast. And guys, we'll be back to close out the show on Conspiranormal.
If you want your HR team to hire top talent for your company, tell them about ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology identifies people with the right skills, education, and experience, and actively invites them to apply to your company's job posts, so you get qualified candidates fast. It's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is rated #1 by employers in the U.S. This rating comes from hiring sites on Trustpilot with over 1,000 reviews. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/conspiranormal. That's ZipRecruiter.com/conspiranormal. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
All right. We're back.
Another epic roundtable event.
Yes, sir. Another one. I was pretty impressed by that roundtable.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was good. I mean, that one, I didn't really know what to expect on that one. We didn't really have like too much of a common theme. But I think going to Alien Expo gave us a nice little theme.
Yeah.
As well.
And we're sorry, we didn't mean to pick on you, Dr. Jonathan Reed.
Dr. Jonathan Reed, yeah, we didn't mean to pick on you too much. It
was nice of you to be nice to us and talk to us and tell us your story.
Yeah. Well, he didn't really tell us his story, but it was the lady that told us the story. Let's just in closing out the show, let's talk a little bit about some of the other things that we did there, and maybe a couple other people that we talked to, and who we were really impressed by. Yeah, we got to meet Dean Haglund, and if you don't know who Dean Haglund is, he was, which one was he? Which one of the lone gunmen was he? What was his name?
Oh crap! I'm gonna look like an X-Files.
Well, you know, like the one that like the blonde hair and the glasses that wore all the Ramones t-shirts. So he's over there in his little booth. I mean, I guess he's getting X-Files questions, and Seraphiel goes up to him and starts talking to him about the Ramones. So we ended up talking to him about the Ramones and Alex Jones for. Was it? When we were talking for what, 30 minutes?
Yeah, we had a pretty good time. Man. He's really cool.
Yeah, and we gave him the card. We gave him a Conspiranormal card. We gave him the little flyer that we have for the Strange Realities Conference. Even though we don't think he's probably won't make it, but we're gonna have him on the show. I'm hopefully in the next couple of months. So I'm really happy about that. He's got a movie. He's had a movie out for a long time.
That movie looks really cool too. I really want to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
he was Richard Ringo Langley.
He was Langley. Yes. Okay. Good. All right. So I get them all mixed up. I think Fro Hickey was the shorter guy with the glasses.
Sounds like
Byers. I think Byers was the guy with the short hair and the beard.
Okay.
I think that's who. Yeah. I think that's
I believe you are correct.
That's how it goes. Okay. Yeah, so we talked a little bit about the lone gunman stuff with him, but mostly it was about Alex Jones and how crazy Alex Jones is. And I got to talk a little bit to Angelia Shear. We're going to try to get her on the show as well. She is as we mentioned before in the roundtable, she's the head of the Tennessee chapter of MUFON. Yeah, I really enjoyed her presentation.
Yeah, it was really cool, really forward thinking.
So her and Ray Hernandez were probably my favorite ones that we saw that day.
Yeah, me too.
She definitely knows what she's talking about, and she has a pretty good handle on kind of like the cross section or the pollination between poltergeist phenomenon and kind of the ghostly phenomenon.
Yeah, I was really impressed.
And the alien stuff.
I was really impressed coming from a MUFON.
Yeah, she's really thinking outside of the box.
Yeah.
MUFON's a real loose organization.
Yeah,
So I think
totally.
that they can embrace whoever is ahead of MUFON. They can kind of embrace it. So she was really interesting. Ray Hernandez, as we mentioned before, we did not get to meet him, but that was a really good presentation, and he was cut short, which I thought was really bad and really should not have been that way. People should have been like really listening to what he had to say. I did get to talk a little bit to Kathleen Marden. I want to get her. She is the niece of Betty Hill, and she did this whole thing about the Betty and Barney Hill alien abduction case. That was really interesting. That's when Dr. Jonathan Reed gave up his little soapbox, and so I got to talk to her as well. Just remind her about being on the show. We did get to talk to Travis Walton just briefly, and I got him to sign a book for my mom.
And I got one too.
Yeah, and
Fire in the Sky, the movie is really influential to me as a young kid in 1993 in Arizona. I remember my dad taking me to it and being terrified by the abduction scene. And
yeah, that was a crazy movie.
Yeah,
nothing like actually what happened.
Right,
but it was a pretty crazy movie.
And it was cool to meet the man. Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
Yeah, he is a really nice guy. He's I met him back in the Paradise Symposium about 3 years ago. I think we talked to him briefly then, and I've had him on the show since then. And we actually met some fans of the show, that was really cool. Which was an interesting experience.
Absolutely.
So we're passing out these flyers for our Strange Realities Conference 2019. And we've had some people that said they may come, be interested, and we go up and we talk to these two guys, 2 girls, and we went up and talked to them, and one of the girls looks at me and says Conspirinormal Podcast Presents, right? And she says, "Oh, I listen to your show." And she listens to Where Did the Road Go too.
And Strange Familiars.
So shout out to those people in Birmingham. I think we are going to call it. Next time we've got Dr. Heather Lynn coming on. I rescheduled that one. We're going to talk about evil archaeology. And I'm really excited to get into some of this stuff. I've already got the questions laid out from a month ago. But I think we're going to talk about demons, possession, maybe get into a little bit of witchcraft, and just some little odds and ends. And guys, we, as you've heard us mention constantly, we have a conference coming up in October.
Strange Realities.
That's right. The Strange Realities Conference, guys. If you are in Nashville or if you are out of town, we'd love for you guys to come. We're doing it at SIR Nashville on October 19th. We've got Tim Binnall, who you just heard tonight. We've got Guy Malone. We got Joshua Cutchin and Timothy Renner, and Mark Wyatt and Zach Hunt, and our good friend Joe is going to be there as well, demonstrating his ghost hunting technology. So we're really looking forward to this, guys. We're trying to raise money for the show and try to come out. It's going to be a really good time. We're going to have music and stuff at the end of the night as well. Maybe a few other kind of miscellaneous things off to the side. So remember that date, October 19th, 2019, for the Strange Realities Conference. And if you would like to help out the show, you can go to
patreon.com/conspiranormal or make a one-time donation at conspiranormal.com.
That's right. It's only $1. $1 gets you in. Okay, guys, we're going to close out the show. I want to thank everybody for listening, and we'll be back next time on Conspiranormal. StrangeRealitiesConference.com.
If you would like to help the show, please consider consider becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/conspiranormal or leave a one-time donation at conspiranormal.com. And please check out our YouTube channel.